Most people assume you need to wait for the perfect planting season to grow a thriving vegetable garden. The logic makes sense. Seeds need warmth, roots need time, and Mother Nature runs on her own schedule. It sounds logical, but surprisingly, some of the most productive vegetable gardens are planted right now, in what most people consider the wrong window. These vegetables beat the odds, outperform summer plantings, resist common pests, and in some cases actually taste better because of the timing. That's because planting on the right micro-schedule gives home gardeners something waiting for the ideal season often cannot. Leverage. Cool-tolerant vegetables actually harden off faster, develop deeper root systems, and face far less competition from the insects and fungal diseases that explode in peak summer heat. Fewer pests means less intervention. Less intervention means less time babying your garden and more time actually harvesting from it. And because soil moisture tends to be more consistent outside the summer window, these vegetables can pull nutrients more efficiently, giving you denser, more flavorful produce with genuinely less effort. On top of that, planting now staggers your harvest so you're not drowning in zucchini one week and staring at an empty bed the next. You get a steadier supply, a longer growing season, and the kind of control over your food production that fair weather gardening rarely delivers. Most experienced growers will tell you the same thing. Some of their best yields didn't come from planting when everyone else did. They came from planting smart, planting strategically, and planting with timing that the vegetable actually prefers, not just timing that feels convenient. In today's video, we're counting down 12 vegetables you can plant right now, before the window closes, and you're left waiting another full season to try again. These aren't obscure heritage crops that require a horticulture degree to manage. These are practical, proven vegetables that genuinely thrive when planted outside the conventional summer rush, and the results will surprise you. Some of them establish faster now than they ever would in July. Some of them produce harvests so abundant you'll be giving bags away to neighbors. And a few of them will completely change the way you think about what your garden is capable of and when. Stay until the end, because the number one vegetable on this list is one that most home growers never attempt at this time of year. Yet it consistently delivers some of the heaviest yields per square foot of any cool season planting, with almost no special treatment required. If you've ever felt like your garden underperforms, this final pick might be exactly the reason why. Bookmark this video, grab something to write with, and let's get into it. Let's get started. At number 12, we have spinach. Most people picture spinach as a spring green that bolts the moment temperatures climb. But surprisingly, planting spinach now, in the cooler shoulder season, often produces fuller, more tender leaves than a midsummer sowing ever could. Here's why. Summer-grown spinach is rarely perfect. It faces intense heat stress, inconsistent soil moisture, and relentless aphid pressure that forces the plant to bolt prematurely, turning leaves bitter and thin almost overnight. Planting now solves that problem immediately. Cooler soil temperatures slow the bolting trigger, giving spinach exactly the environment it was bred for. The result is thicker, sweeter, more nutrient-dense leaves that hold their quality on the plant for weeks longer. Another huge advantage is cut-and-come-again growth. Spinach harvested at the outer leaves will keep regenerating from the center, meaning one planting feeds you multiple times. That's why experienced growers treat it as a perpetual crop rather than a one-and-done harvest. Busy home gardeners also love how little space spinach demands. A single raised bed section, or even a deep container, produces a genuinely impressive yield. You get maximum output from minimum real estate. Sometimes the secret to a productive garden isn't planting more varieties. It's planting the right ones at exactly the right moment. Moving down to number 11, we have kale. Most people picture kale as a tough, bitter green that takes forever to mature. But surprisingly, planting kale now often produces sweeter, more tender leaves than summer-started plants ever could, because a light frost actually improves its flavor dramatically. Here's why. Summer kale battles heat, cabbage worms, and moisture stress that forces leaves to turn tough and overly fibrous. Planting now bypasses that window entirely. Cooler conditions trigger the plant to convert starches into sugars naturally. The result is kale that genuinely tastes better straight from the garden. Coming in at number 10, we have garlic. Most people picture garlic as a spring planting. But surprisingly, garlic planted now develops a stronger, more established root system that produces significantly larger bulbs than spring-planted cloves almost every single time. Here's why. Spring-planted garlic barely has time to root before summer heat rushes it toward maturity, producing small, underdeveloped bulbs. Planting now gives each clove an entire cool season to anchor itself deeply into the soil. That slow, unhurried root development is exactly what drives those big, flavor-packed bulbs every serious grower chases. At number 9, we have lettuce. Most people picture lettuce as a summer salad crop, something you toss in between tomatoes and cucumbers under full sun. But surprisingly, lettuce planted now in cooler conditions produces crispier, more flavorful heads than anything grown in the heat of summer. Here's why. Summer lettuce is rarely perfect. It faces scorching soil temperatures, rapid moisture loss, and bitter compounds that develop when the plant stresses, forcing it to bolt fast and turn unpleasantly sharp on the palate. Planting now solves that immediately. Cooler air and soil keep lettuce in its ideal growth window longer, slowing bolting and allowing heads to develop fully. The result is sweeter, crunchier, more market-quality lettuce from your own backyard. Another huge advantage is speed. Lettuce is one of the fastest maturing vegetables you can grow, with some varieties ready to harvest in as little as 30 days. That's why it delivers returns almost before any other crop on this list. Sometimes the secret to great lettuce isn't a better variety. It's simply better timing. Moving down to number 8, we have broccoli. Most people picture broccoli as a complicated, high-maintenance crop that demands perfect conditions. But surprisingly, broccoli planted now consistently outperforms summer starts, producing tighter, more flavorful heads with far less pest pressure. Here's why. Warm season broccoli suffers badly. It attracts cabbage loopers, aphids, and harlequin bugs while simultaneously struggling with heat-induced heading failures that leave growers with loose, flowering clusters instead of firm, dense crowns. Planting now sidesteps that entire problem. Cooler temperatures encourage slow, steady head development. The result is the kind of tight, deep green broccoli that actually looks and tastes like something worth growing. Another huge advantage is that broccoli keeps giving after the main head is cut. Side shoots continue producing for weeks, effectively turning one plant into a multi-harvest investment. That's one reason experienced growers always make room for it regardless of season. Busy home gardeners also appreciate how well broccoli tolerates light frost. A cold snap doesn't set it back. It actually sweetens the flavor. That kind of resilience makes it one of the most forgiving crops on this entire list. Coming in at number 7, we have radishes. Most people picture radishes as an afterthought, a filler crop tucked into spare corners of the garden without much expectation. But surprisingly, radishes planted now mature so quickly and so reliably that they can be harvested and replanted multiple times before other crops on this list even reach full size. Here's why. Summer radishes turn pithy, hollow, and aggressively spicy almost faster than you can harvest them, because heat accelerates their development beyond the point of good eating. Planting now slows that process down perfectly. Cooler soil keeps radishes in their ideal eating window longer, producing crisp, mildly spicy roots with the texture and bite that makes them genuinely enjoyable raw. Another huge advantage is their role as a companion plant. Radishes naturally deter common pests like cucumber beetles and squash borers, making them one of the few vegetables that actively improves conditions for everything planted nearby. That's why smart gardeners treat them as a garden tool as much as a food crop. Even better, radishes double as a soil loosener. Their taproots break up compacted ground as they grow, improving drainage and aeration for whatever follows them in the bed. It's one more example of how a simple, fast crop provides layered advantages that slower-growing vegetables simply can't match. Sometimes the secret to a more productive garden isn't a dramatic overhaul. It's adding one small, fast-moving crop that quietly improves everything around it. At number 6, we have Swiss chard. Most people picture Swiss chard as a decorative garden plant, something grown more for its colorful stems than for serious food production. But surprisingly, Swiss chard planted now delivers one of the most consistent, long-running harvests of any vegetable on this entire list. Here's why. Summer-established chard constantly battles heat stress and moisture fluctuation that causes leaves to yellow, toughen, and lose the mild, earthy flavor that makes it so versatile in the kitchen. Planting now gives chard exactly the stable, cool conditions it prefers for early establishment. Once rooted, it becomes extraordinarily resilient. The result is a plant that shrugs off light frosts, bounces back from heavy harvesting, and keeps producing well into seasons when most other greens have long given up. Another huge advantage is its nutritional density. Swiss chard is loaded with vitamins K, A, and C, making every harvest genuinely valuable beyond just filling a plate. That's why nutritionally minded growers almost always keep a row of it running year-round. Busy home gardeners also love how low-maintenance chard becomes once established. It rarely needs intervention, tolerates inconsistent watering better than most leafy greens, and practically manages itself between harvests. You get steady, reliable production without constant attention. Sometimes the secret to a productive garden isn't chasing the flashiest crops. It's quietly growing the dependable ones that never let you down. Moving down to number 5, we have beets. Most people picture beets as a slow, unrewarding root crop that takes up valuable garden space for months with little to show for it. But surprisingly, beets planted now produce both an edible root and a continuous supply of nutritious greens, effectively giving you 2 harvests from a single planting. Here's why. Warm season beets struggle with germination inconsistency, tough skin development, and woody texture caused by heat stress that ruins both the root and the greens simultaneously. Planting now solves both problems at once. Cool soil dramatically improves germination rates, and steady cool temperatures encourage slow, even sugar development inside the root. The result is sweeter, more tender beets with that deep, earthy richness that grocery store varieties rarely deliver. Another huge advantage is flexibility at harvest. Beets can be pulled small as baby vegetables or left to develop into full-sized roots, giving you complete control over how and when you eat them. That's one reason they fit so naturally into any kitchen regardless of cooking style. Busy home gardeners also appreciate that beet greens are harvestable weeks before the roots mature, meaning you're already eating from the plant long before the main harvest arrives. You get returns on your investment faster than almost any other root vegetable. Even better, beets are naturally frost-tolerant once established, extending your productive season well beyond what warm season crops allow. It's one more example of how a cool season planting delivers layered value that summer gardening often can't match. Sometimes the secret to getting more from your garden isn't planting more. It's choosing crops that give you multiple harvests from a single seed. Coming in at number 4, we have carrots. Most people picture carrots as a straightforward crop: push the seeds in, water regularly, and pull them out when they're big enough. But surprisingly, carrots planted now develop a depth of sweetness and texture that summer-grown carrots almost never achieve, no matter how carefully they're tended. Here's why. Summer carrot crops face rocky germination in warm, dry soil, followed by rapid, uneven development that produces forked, cracked, or pithy roots with a sharp, almost harsh flavor. Planting now changes the entire equation. Cool soil retains moisture more evenly, dramatically improving germination rates and allowing roots to develop slowly and uniformly. As temperatures drop further, the carrot plant converts stored starches into sugars, a natural process that produces the sweet, almost honey-like flavor that makes homegrown carrots incomparable to anything from a store shelf. Another huge advantage is storage. Carrots planted now can be left in the ground through light frosts and harvested progressively over weeks, essentially using your garden bed as a natural refrigerator. That's why experienced growers call them one of the most efficient crops in terms of harvest flexibility. Busy home gardeners also love that carrots require almost no maintenance once germinated. Beyond thinning and occasional watering, they largely grow themselves, quietly developing underground while you focus attention elsewhere in the garden. Sometimes the secret to an exceptional harvest isn't exotic technique. It's simply letting a familiar vegetable grow in the conditions it was always meant to thrive in. Breaking into the top three, let's talk about cabbage. Most people picture cabbage as a bulk grocery item, something cheap, plentiful, and barely worth the garden space. But surprisingly, homegrown cabbage planted now produces heads so dense, crisp, and flavorful that it genuinely bears almost no resemblance to what you'd pull from a supermarket bag. Here's why. Warm season cabbage is plagued by cabbage worms, aphids, and heat-induced splitting that ruins heads before they ever reach full development. Planting now sidesteps that pest pressure almost entirely while giving cabbage the cool, moist conditions that produce its signature density and crunch. The result is tight, heavy heads with layers that hold their texture whether eaten raw, fermented, or cooked low and slow. Another huge advantage is long harvest flexibility. A mature cabbage head doesn't need to be pulled immediately. It holds in the ground through frost without significant quality loss, giving you weeks to harvest on your own schedule. That's why market gardeners rely on it as one of their most dependable cool season cash crops. Busy home gardeners also love that cabbage is a set-and-forget crop once transplanted. It needs little beyond consistent moisture and basic spacing. You plant it, step back, and return to a finished head weeks later with minimal intervention required. Even better, cabbage stores exceptionally well after harvest, lasting weeks in a cool space without any preservation effort. It's one more example of how a cool season planting delivers value that extends far beyond the garden bed itself. Sometimes the secret to getting serious harvests from a home garden isn't growing complicated crops. It's mastering the reliable ones that reward good timing with almost zero drama. At number 2, we have turnips. Most people picture turnips as old-fashioned, bland root vegetables with little modern appeal. But surprisingly, turnips planted now mature faster than almost any other root crop on this list, delivering both edible greens and sweet, tender roots in as little as 5 weeks. Here's why. Summer turnips turn woody and aggressively bitter almost immediately after maturity. Planting now keeps them in their ideal flavor window significantly longer. Cool temperatures slow fiber development and enhance natural sweetness. The result is a completely different vegetable, mild, versatile, and genuinely worth growing. Sometimes the secret to rediscovering a forgotten crop is simply growing it at the right time. And finally, taking the crown at number 1, garlic. If there is one vegetable that truly seems designed for cool season planting, this is it. Most people picture garlic as something you buy in bulk at a farmer's market. But surprisingly, homegrown garlic planted now produces bulbs so superior in flavor, size, and potency that store-bought garlic will never satisfy you again. Here's why. Commercially grown garlic is harvested early, stored long, and irradiated to prevent sprouting, stripping away much of its flavor and nutritional value before it ever reaches your kitchen. Planting now gives each clove a full cool season to develop deep, complex flavor compounds that only time and cold can build. The result is garlic with layers of heat, sweetness, and aroma that genuinely transforms every dish it touches. Another huge advantage is effortless multiplication. Every single clove you plant returns as a full bulb, meaning one modest investment this season stocks your kitchen for an entire year and seeds next season's crop simultaneously. Busy home gardeners also love that garlic demands almost nothing after planting. Press cloves into prepared soil, mulch generously, and walk away. It quietly does all its best work underground while you tend everything else. It's the perfect example of how cool season planting doesn't limit your harvest. Sometimes, planting at exactly the right moment actually unlocks it. The biggest mistake many home gardeners make is assuming peak summer planting automatically produces the best results. But sometimes, a cooler window, a quieter season, and a little strategic timing creates far better growing conditions than midsummer ever could. Fewer pests, richer flavor, stronger roots and harvests that stretch across seasons, and far more control over what actually ends up on your table. That's why so many vegetables on this list genuinely thrive right now. You don't need perfect summer weather to grow impressive food. Sometimes, planting at the right moment outperforms planting at the popular one. And once you experience how productive cool season gardening can become, you'll start seeing every spare patch of soil in a completely different way. Because successful gardening isn't always about growing more. Sometimes, it's simply about using your timing more intelligently.